A mummy unveiled. High-performance computers helping to probe the ancient past. Megabytes to medicines. Using supercomputers to test tomorrow's pharmaceuticals. Seeing is believing. When it comes to displaying data, it's not so simple. Microburst alert, predicting local weather hazards to aviation.
This supercomputer-generated image portrays a skull that belongs to no ordinary patient. In fact, the owner is nearly 2,000 years old. Somewhere in ancient Egypt, the patient in question lived, died, and was mummified.
Well, this is a Roman period Egyptian mummy, and we know this because of the style of the wrappings and the kind of decoration that's on the front.
Almost 20 centuries later, the mummy was acquired by the University of Illinois' World Heritage Museum.
Then you come down to this section, you have decorations of Egyptian gods in brilliant colors. We don't know anything about who the person is, how old the person is, what sex, how the person died, and this is what we're trying to find out. We have traces of red here and a greenish black, and of course the gold.
Archaeologist Sarah Wisseman heads the university's program on ancient technologies and archaeological materials. However, to uncover the mummy's ancient secrets non-destructively, she turned to late 20th century technology.
The Ancient Technologies program is an interdisciplinary unit, and its aim is to apply materials science to archaeological and art historical materials. And this is an archaeological project, the World Heritage Museum mummy, and it's probably our most interdisciplinary project to date.
44 is going to be around to Carl.
First, though, the body in question had to be transported not to the afterlife, but to the Carl Clinic in Urbana, a journey made all the easier with the help of a local ambulance crew. Soon enough, the mummy was placed in a CT scanner and probed with X-rays. The result? A series of two-dimensional slices through the head, thorax, and pelvic regions.
Is that more than one fracture or just one?
There's at least 2 or 3 fractures along there. Sarah Wisseman called me up one day and asked if I'd be interested in seeing some CT scans of the mummy, and of course I was very interested. Well, I was excited about it. It was a chance to, sort of a challenge to do something different from the ordinary, I shouldn't say ordinary, but from the patients that I would do every day. I think it could be just the dehydrated brain, although it's difficult to tell because there's not much structure to it.
It certainly doesn't look like resin.
Though the CT scan slices revealed quite a lot about the mummy's interior, much of the information remained untapped. In order to further probe beneath the wrappings, the three-dimensional information inherent in the slice data needed to be recaptured. Sarah next turned to David Lawrence, an internist now developing volume rendering tools at NCSA's Distributed Biomedical Imaging Laboratory.
Now, tissue, our organs have interesting three-dimensional structures at all levels, the microscopic level on up. And in order to understand how to treat diseases well, or to know where to go in research, it's good to understand exactly what that structure is.
First, the two-dimensional slice data from the CT scanner were composited by NCSA's Cray-2 supercomputer. Next, employing NCSA's 32,000 processor connection machine and running recently developed 3D rendering software, David Lawrence manipulated the numerical data from the Cray through a series of rotations and projections.
What we're trying to do is develop techniques to be able to not only visualize these data sets, but begin to integrate this instrumentation that collects these data sets with high-performance computing environments like the Cray, like the connection machine.
The massively parallel architecture of the connection machine is ideally suited to this task. Each of the volume elements, or voxels, can be assigned to a single processor. The result, a series of volume renderings that can be saved and replayed as an animation.
You can really see the teeth very clearly here, the entire jaw.
Well, you see all of his teeth, baby teeth, adult teeth, and all.
Though suspected of having been male, the mummy's sex remains uncertain. However, the presence of both adult and baby teeth confirms that the deceased was a child aged 7 to 9 years.
The CAT scans and the 3D renderings have added to what we knew before about the state of the mummy and also the embalming practices that were used in the Roman period.
We're starting at the top of the head now.
One view of the skull shows that part of the brain was left in place. So were other organs, such as the heart and lungs, as seen in these slices taken through the chest region. This dramatic animation of the child's skull clearly shows the presence of fractures. That the fractures follow the growth lines, or sutures, suggests that they were caused not by injury, but by mishandling after death. Nevertheless, the embalmers carefully wrapped the fragile body and supported it with a well-crafted wooden stiffening board.
All this indicates to me that the child came from a family that had enough money to afford probably one of the better jobs of embalming for its period. And this was a child who was loved and cherished, and they took some care in preparing the body.
Supercomputers and body scanners, coupled together, they provide a powerful window into the ancient past. Scientific curiosity aside, the combination promises to advance the state of medical imaging, thus enabling doctors to better diagnose and treat disease in the here and now.
And just like people, disease exists in 3 dimensions too. And so tools that allow us to restore the dimensionality, to put all the slices back together, is something very unique that we can do here at the National Center.
One of the things that characterizes drug research is a very lengthy discovery time frame in which literally hundreds of analogs have to be synthesized and screened for biological activity. So anything that would impact in any phase of this cycle, compressing the time frame of discovery is a primary objective in computational chemistry research related to drug design.
Since the turn of the century, Eli Lilly and Company has been manufacturing drugs to treat the ills of humanity. The company is known for marketing the first commercial insulin for the treatment of diabetes back in the 1920s. At the worldwide headquarters in Indianapolis, Indiana, Lilly scientists are now using high-performance computers to help them in their quest for new and better drugs. Lilly's introduction to the world of supercomputers came in 1987, when the company joined the NCSA as an industrial partner. Riaz Abdullah, head of supercomputer applications and molecular design, was part of a task force formed by Lilly to find out how high-performance computers could speed the process of drug discovery and development. After careful consideration, the task force recommended that Lilly team up with the NCSA.
And our objectives were very straightforward. We needed to find out what this new technology of supercomputing was, to apply it to relevant problems within the company, and basically to position our research group and the company for the future.
So, how can high-performance computing help in drug development? James Audia, a senior organic chemist in central nervous system research, uses computer simulation as an adjunct to the experiment. He's trying to design molecules that interact selectively with receptors for serotonin. Serotonin is a neurotransmitter that is implicated in a variety of diseases, including anxiety and depression. It does so by interacting with distinct receptors. Altering these interactions could provide a means to modify its effects.
We're making keys based on the shape of other keys, rather than having them based on the shape of the lock. And so, yeah, it's sort of an indirect method right now, and that's been one of the traditional methods. So what we do is we use the computer to help us predict what the accessible conformations or shapes of these molecules might be, and that might help us design compounds that are more selective and more specific in their actions for interacting with these receptors. Then, on the basis of those rationalizations, we'll try and use the computational techniques to predict the behavior of compounds that we've yet to synthesize.
By providing access to the Cray 2 with its 128 million words of memory, NCSA helped Lilly researchers carry out increasingly sophisticated calculations. At NCSA, Lilly chemists, both computational and experimental, also learned the state-of-the-art in visualization. Then, as its enthusiasm for high-performance computing rose, Lilly took a decisive step. In 1989, it became the first pharmaceutical company to purchase its own Cray-2 supercomputer system.
We probably have a lead in the United States by having the vision somewhat earlier than others. The others will undoubtedly, I think, move into supercomputing in computational sciences within the not-too-distant future, and gradually probably all major pharmaceutical companies will have Cray technology or equivalent technology available to them.
John Stevenson is the Associate Director of the Industrial Program at NCSA. He's watched the partnership with Lilly grow and mature.
Lilly is, in terms of using computational science, high-performance computing technology, the tools, the software, the type of application support that's been provided, they're definitely the leader in their industry. Other companies have shown signs of now that Lilly has moved forward, of trying to follow them and trying to mimic them. And of course, from an industrial program standpoint, that's exactly what we had hoped would happen and across the board in many industries, not just pharmaceuticals.
Today, there are over 60 drug discovery scientists at Lilly that use its Cray-2 on a daily basis. Following the model of NCSA, Lilly has set up a comprehensive network to provide workstation access to its Cray-2 throughout the complex. But despite its impressive computational resources, Lilly continues to stay on at NCSA.
We find that we are 3 years or so behind NCSA, simply because we can't be at the cutting edge. It's too new. We wouldn't be able to easily apply things that are at the cutting edge to our research today. We would like to design the safest, most effective, efficacious pharmaceutical agents to cure the severe and serious problems that face humanity. And we are encouraged that we have a new and powerful tool that will aid us in that search.
We look both ways when we cross the street, automatically adjusting our movements. Red means stop, green says go. We're not thinking about it, but our survival demands that we constantly observe color, movement, shape, and distance, then combine this information with previous knowledge to decide our next move. Quick comprehension, focused attention, and accurate perception are also vital for both the air traffic controller and the pilot. As a cognitive psychologist, Chris Wiggins is developing better methods to display aviation data. Heading the Aviation Research Lab at the University of Illinois, he sees strong parallels between the way pilots perceive their displays and how scientists look at their visualizations.
Both cases, you've got an expert trying to understand a complex, multidimensional spatial problem, and using display technology to make that comprehension as intuitive and as rapid as possible.
While experts in the field of visualization have developed methods to represent complex sets of data, they've often done so through trial and error. But rapid advances in graphics technology are creating an increasing need for a more robust visual language, one that not only takes into account so-called human factors, the mental components of perception, but can be applied to different areas of scientific inquiry.
We as psychologists don't know that much about your domain, and you that work in visualization probably bring a lot of very good insights into the work that you're doing.
Attracted by the NCSA's pioneering efforts in the field of scientific visualization, Wiggins contacted Dan Brady, NCSA's Manager of Visualization Services and Development. Thus began a two-way collaboration to better understand how scientists perceive data. The goal for Wiggins is to develop a set of principles to optimize three-dimensional displays. For example, a principle of consistency, consistent use of symbols from one display to the next. a principle of analogy to trigger past associations from the data, and criteria to decide when to display data in 2 dimensions or 3. These rules are crucial to the development of a universal language of visualization. In turn, Dan Brady's group wants to better understand the intuitive process underlying visualization and to use this knowledge to create new software tools.
So how can you put this advanced intuitive ability into a system? Well, one thing you have to do is identify what the structures of that intuition are and begin to put them into structures that actually can become, say, software tools or interactions with a computer. And that's, of course, much of what Chris has been involved with, is that interaction and what he's going forward with.
Dave Merwin, graduate student in psychology, oversees a series of interactive experiments designed by Wiggins to answer some basic questions in display cognition. An Iris personal workstation is programmed with various tasks. The test subject is presented with a problem. Information is provided as a graph in 2 dimensions or 3 dimensions. The subject can animate the graph or use shadows to help solve the problem. The response time to the different displays is recorded by the computer, and this should reveal which displays are better and when.
As a psychologist, I like to think that they're general principles of human behavior and perception, and if they're general, they should apply to different domains. And so, to me, it's an intellectual challenge to see if the same principles that apply to aviation design can be then moved over to apply to the visualization area.
But would a scientist really find such a set of principles useful? Mike Norman, a computational astrophysicist at the NCSA, thinks so. It took time and experimentation to develop the color palette needed to render this simulation of a galactic jet.
Our final choice of colors was really dictated both by aesthetics, preconditioning about the way you would imagine this in space, although it looks nothing like that in a radio telescope, and a desire to simplify the complex. My research has been in 2-dimensional modeling up until about 6 months ago, when my research moved into 3 dimensions. Now we do need 3-dimensional visualization tools and paradigms, and the potential for clutter and confusion is just enormous in 3 dimensions. And there, these human factors really do come into play.
As datasets grow in size, so does the potential for confusion. Often, the simpler the display, the greater its impact. However, to attain simplicity in visualization is not easy. It requires knowing how our minds filter information. By collaborating with psychologist Chris Wiggins, NCSA's visualization group plans to use such knowledge to enhance the power of their images.
Before, we were just saying, well, that looks good, and we had a lot of insight from artists and designers and people who thought carefully about it, but we weren't really understanding, because of psychological studies, what that perception was doing, or considered what cultural stereotypes are doing to color forms or things like that. And then we're much more astute about that, and hopefully we will be able to find ways to better build systems and or methods that account for that.
So many aviation graphs are now becoming complex visualizations. I'd like to see some of the principles go back in the other direction as well. And I think the design of aviation displays can learn an awful lot from the sort of work that's going on in visualization.
These fair weather clouds look innocent enough. Slowly they build up, driven by the hot Florida sun. Nearby, a plane approaches Orlando International Airport. Soon its passengers and pilot will land safely and smoothly. But the weather can be deceptively calm. Certain atmospheric conditions may trigger a cloud to rise rapidly. As the rising moisture cools, it quickly precipitates. Within the core of precipitation, a powerful downdraft descends to the ground. This intense, localized downdraft is called a microburst.
It's like pouring milk onto the table, and you see the milk pouring out. Exact same thing happens in a microburst. Air comes down, hits the ground right here in the center, and it spreads out.
The hazard to pilot and passengers when landing or taking off can be deadly.
He flies through a headwind that very quickly turns into a strong tailwind. Under this kind of a scenario, the plane loses a great deal of lift and loses a great deal of altitude.
Based at the Space Science and Engineering Center at the University of Wisconsin at Madison, atmospheric scientists John Anderson and Jerry Straka have been modeling the formation of microbursts before they actually happen.
This is really the first step toward this very much grander goal of being able to do real-time forecasting and actually having a picture on a display that would be running 10 or 20 minutes ahead of time.
Being able to predict microburst activity could greatly aid safety at airports.
Before a microburst actually happens, we want to make a simulation of it and give the information to people who can use it. We need to have a very fast computer, and we need to have lots of computer memory storage.
The Wisconsin researchers sought and obtained daily access to NCSA's Cray-2 supercomputer.
It was going to give us a chance to do real-time forecasts using the Cray-2 for the very first time. Now, the forecasts were made several hours before the event, and this put some burden on the Cray to get the forecasts out in a timely manner.
In order to give their cloud models a basis in reality, the Wisconsin researchers needed real-world atmospheric data.
3, 2, 1, launch away.
Back in Florida, in the vicinity of Orlando Airport, a weather balloon is launched to probe the summer morning atmosphere.
I've lost it in the cloud.
As the balloon rises, it measures wind speed and direction, as well as pressure, temperature, and humidity, and radios the data back to the ground crew. The soundings are relayed via modem to Wisconsin, then fed into the cloud model. Moments later, the simulation is up and running on NCSA's Cray-2.
With high-speed networking facilities, we can actually use a supercomputer at Illinois, very much like we could use it if it was here. Because of that, it's possible for us to have pictures from the model while the model's still running. We can make three-dimensional visualizations of the fields and really understand what's going on in the clouds.
Perfecting the numerical models demands that they be compared against the real thing. Within minutes, the model predictions are faxed back to Orlando to researchers at an experimental radar system set up near the airport. Known as Terminal Doppler Weather Radar, or TDWR, the system probes the clouds for microburst activity. Wind speeds and reflectivity, indicating the strength of precipitation, are automatically computed and displayed. Simplified displays are transmitted directly to the control tower. Here, if microburst features are detected, the air traffic controller can respond quickly.
Delta 155, runway 18 left, microburst alert. 65 knot lost, 1 mile on final.
The TDWR program is scheduled to start deploying operational sensors at airports in 1992, with a large number of airports receiving TDWRs in 1993.
However, it's likely that the warning systems that eventually emerge will rely not only on remote detection of microbursts or their immediate precursors, but also on model data.
Now, if we have some idea of what the storms or the hazardous events are really going to look like, what we can do is we can cue those systems. We can tell them on this day, these features are likely to be present, but other ones that it would normally look for may not.
Though better detection of microbursts is certainly an important goal, there remains the challenge of prediction based not only on balloon soundings, but also Doppler radar. Ultimately, the hope is to predict local microburst activity up to 20 minutes ahead of time.
What one would like to have is a physical model of the environment that could produce a prediction that was consistent with laws of physics in the current environment right now.
And in order to do that, we need more powerful computers, and we have to learn to deal with not only millions of numbers, but billions of numbers.
Integrating observations with model data in real time poses yet another challenge. High-speed links will be needed to move the volumes of data between instruments, supercomputers, and people, whatever their location.
As we see networks going from millions of bits per second to billions of bits per second, we'll be able to put those resources at the sites where they're best maintained, and then use them remotely.
NCSA has taken a keen interest in this experiment because through it we're learning what the capabilities for distributed computing and for communicating between scientists really are. This is a test bed for us.